Hi everyone, delonewolf here, and welcome back for another EVE Online video. Today's video is going to be a discussion video because CCP came out with the economic numbers for EVE Online for March. So that's actually pretty interesting. March is the month where they made the announcement for the new industry changes, and the latest EVE talks have clearly shown that there's a bit of a rush happening on production to try to still take advantage of the current set of industry rules rather than having to go for the more complex ones. And then we also clearly have quite a lot of speculation happening in the market, especially around those goods that will change substantially with the industry changes, like battleships, capital ships, super capital ships as well. Not really visible in EVE Talk or in JITA, but it's clearly happening. I would say that there's a lot of speculation, a big rush on, well, just minerals and goods and production in general, and potentially perhaps even some bubble formations. So let's go take a look. If you want to read this article for yourself, you can follow along by going to eveonline.com. Then you click on the news link, which brings you to the revamped news site. And here we find the monthly economic report for March 2021. And that is this one. So let's dive right in. The first chart is always very interesting. Production versus destruction, showing us the amounts mined. That's this yellow line. Then destroyed, that's the blue line, with a big peak here around January. So late December, early January. It's of course that very major fight in the war for the Imperium, basically against everyone else, where lots of titans were destroyed around the Keepstar. So very cool, of course, to still see that here, but we've weathered that storm decently well, and basically since then we were already on an upwards trajectory for production. But here is of course the rush that I was talking about. Around mid-March we got a clear acceleration in how much is being produced in EVE Online, so everyone is basically rushing into making as much of the stuff that's changing, and that's going to become probably more expensive after the patch hits. We can also see that mining started to trend up, but clearly a lot more slowly than production. And so this is that rush on minerals that has actually pushed some of the minerals, especially I would say Noxium, like 2,500 disk at one point, some crazy numbers on all of that. And so there is this rush on raw resources to just convert them into stuff now, so that you don't have to do that under the new rules. Very clearly shown right here in this production chart. So the factories are running as hot as they can. Another chart that's pretty interesting is of course the total destroyed by region. And I actually noticed that before, and that's still not fixed. So there's basically still a mistake in the link. Can't really show you guys the full detail of this chart, but Delft is still the #1 region. So the war involving the Imperium is still happening. Now we're getting a lot less, I would say, for when it comes to propaganda and big fights and things like that. I'm sure that it's constantly still happening, but of course they're not like throwing their Titan fleets against each other right now. So it's more of I think the Imperium industry is slowly being demolished step by step. They're basically burning everything to the ground in the region of Delft, and that's clearly being shown here in the amount that's being destroyed. I don't think this is all ships. This is bound to be a lot of infrastructure as well. After that, we've got the Forge and then the Citadel. So a couple of trade hubs where gankers and war deckers do tend to gravitate towards to try and find some targets. So that's still pretty much the same situation. The war is clearly destroying a lot of stuff in EVE Online, which I would say is still very healthy, of course, for the economy and the sandbox in general. Next up, we've got total mining value by region, and this is definitely a big swing, a big change all of a sudden. #1, Veil of the Silent. That's actually a nullsec region, and we haven't seen that in, I'm gonna say, at least half a year, probably a little bit longer than that, a nullsec region was #1. Before, it was always the highsec region, and there's still second place is Metropolis, so that's Minimatar space. Then we get the Forge, Kaldari highsec, then Domain, Amar highsec, and Sink Liaison, which is Galente Hisek. So those 4 trade hubs, and around that we have a lot of mining happening, and despite the fact that it's just titanium, pyrite and mixalon basically that they can get there, the amounts being mined there are quite substantial, but all of a sudden we do have Veil of the Silent that has caught up. Not really sure exactly what's happening. I don't think that they got like super lucky with bell spawns or anything like that. My take on this, my read on this, let me know in the comments if I'm right or wrong on that. Definitely would love to know more about what's happening in Veil of the Silent, but I would say that there's gonna be a little bit of preparation done there by the group or groups that are active in Veil of the Silent. We know, like, quite a few months ago when CCP nerfed moon mining and re-nerfed mining in general, you could say potential mining output, they immediately notified us that, yeah, all right, we're probably hitting moon mining too hard, but don't just throw everything away. We are going to revisit that at some time, and that's exactly what happened with the March announcement. Of course, moon mats would be needed in a lot more industrial processes, and as a result, those that were ready, those that maybe kept their infrastructure and managed to still protect their infrastructure without necessarily running all the moons actively all the time, right? You could definitely save a lot on fuels and costs and things like that, but that were ready basically at the flick of a switch to turn everything on and to start mining vast amounts of these resources that would become a lot more valuable in the month of April. Well, that's probably a big part of what happened here in Veil of the Silent with this massive jump up to over 2,000 billion Isk in mining stuff, reached in a single month. Very impressive number, and definitely a trend break as well, where a nullsec region has managed to outmine everyone else, and we haven't seen that in a long time, probably since basically the war. Then we've got total NPC bounties by region. That of course is completely dominated by nullsec, but here there is still one region, again Veil of the Silent, that is standing out with over 3,200 billion, and then the next ones are probably around 1,200 billion, so almost 3 times as much bounties in a single region. Well, I don't want to speculate too much on whether it's just a very well organized and group that's able to basically protect all its ratters so well, and that's maybe avoiding a lot of trouble with the war that's brewing somewhere else, or is there some automation and things like that involved? We'll let CCP keep a close eye on that. I hope that they do that. Of course, this is clearly something that is, 3 times more. It's a very high number. It's a very high X times compared to everyone else, although it is entirely possible as well if you are the large organized group that's basically deciding to stay out of the war and to now take this opportunity to rat and to mine as much as possible so that you can build up all of your fleets, hoping that you can basically assert yourself before, well, the war ends and all of the wolves turn their attention to you. They may also be painting a big target on their back by doing this as well, of course. So that could be interesting. Definitely something to keep an eye on. And if you have information on Veil of the Silent, definitely put that in the comments. I would love to read about it. Next up, production value by region. This is still the same story. The Fort, Jita, the center of gravity for EVE Online, market transaction, things like that, still dominating by quite a lot. After that, we've got Delph, so that there's still a lot being produced there while the war is raging. I think both sides are still trying to churn out whatever they can from the bases that they're still holding, trying to get more stuff into battle to fight the good fight. That's pretty cool. And then what's also noticeable here, Veil of the Silent is clearly competing with, next to Domain and Sink Liaison, so that's Galente Hisek and Amar Hisek. That's pretty impressive. So here we really do have a big jump up, you could say, in Veil of the Silent, mining the most, ratting the most, producing, well, not the most, but clearly competitive with some of the most populous regions as well. So there you could say that economic machine in Veil of the Silent is going into overdrive and trying to get ready for what comes next in EVE Online. Let's see what we are encountering next. Total market value without the forge. That could still be interesting as well, especially this one here, domain. So that's the Amar market, reaching a cap of over $60,000 billion. That dollars, Isk, excuse me. That's a lot, and I think a steady growth here for Amar. If I remember correctly, in some of the previous ones, I remember 50 to 55 billion or 1,000 billion. So Amar does seem to be growing. Very impressive. In fact, one of the latest comments on one of my videos was to take another look at Amar because, well, they're enjoying the constant growth that they're seeing in the Amar market. Definitely something to look at. We did notice that lots of activity around mining and minerals seems to be happening in the Amar market, but overall it's head and shoulders above everyone else after Jita, of course. Jita is not included in this chart. It's basically 3 times as large as the next one, which is Sinks Liaison, so the Dixie for the Caldari. Then we get Delph, right? Still a huge market that's of course being fought over. Then we get Lone Trek and Metropolis, and then High Metar, so that's some Min Metar stuff here as well, who together come basically in line with the Galente one for Sinks Liaison. So overall, very impressive for Amar to still assert itself. There's definitely no like complete drop off where Amar becomes unimportant or where everyone moves closer to Jita. That's not necessarily happening. I do think that Amar is a very interesting region with a lot of potential for smaller groups, for players, and as a result, its market is doing well. Total contracts trade by value, value by region. We could take a quick look at that. The Forge still number 1. Delph, lots of contracting happening here. Now, I think that this is partly also going to be some capital and super capital trading that's happening here. People basically deciding, all right, I want to get rid of my supers, or maybe I want to buy my super right now because it's going to become far more expensive when the industry changes hit. So we can clearly see that a lot is happening over contracts in Delph. And then Veil of the Silent is doing a lot of contracting here as well. So that's super noticeable. The largest trade hub in EVE Online, Jita, still, of course, where most trading happens. But then when it comes to contract trading, we do have 2 nullsec regions that are dominating. Everything else is much lower in volumes there. So my expectation here, a little bit of speculation, you could say, some very active trading around the larger ships like capitals and super capitals. What else do we have that is potentially interesting? I'm not going to go over all of these imports, exports. I kind of want to go to the Isk Faucets and Sinks because last month we actually lost Isk from beginning of month to the end of month. This time we were actually doing better. So 1330 to 1336, we're regaining a little bit of Isk. There's some more Isk coming into the system. Part of it is probably a bit of rebalancing that CCP has done around the nullsec ratting. I think they made it so that there's a little bit more Isk coming to that. And let's take a quick look at what we can find here. Number 1 though, commodity market. So that's basically the blue loot, you could say. That stuff being sold to NPCs that is now completely overshadowing the bounties that are in second place at 22 trillion. Then after that we've got the Sasha incursions that are, well, below the bounty prices, but definitely in the same range. And after that, ESS main bank output. Okay, so we could add that probably to the bounty prizes. So big part of that is ratting itself. That puts this one at around 31, which is a little bit more in line with the commodity prices. But all of the change that CCP has done to ratting, making it more risky, adding in that incentive for roaming pirates, you could say, to try and break the bank, has had a big impact on bounty prices. And now the number 1 creation of Isk actually comes through finding commodities, and you gotta probably expect that it's mostly blue loot from wormhole space, selling that to NPCs. That creates Isk in the game. And that's now the new way of ratting, you could say, in EVE Online. Completely overshot everything else at this point. Top 6 commodity faucets over time. I think that is going to exemplify what we're talking about. Sleeper components, right? You can see here the growth over the last couple of months for sleeper components. And that's that blue loot that I was talking about. Then we have a big spike here in the overseer effects. That was a special event that CCP did. It's still pretty damn high. And then Triglavian data is also going up here in amounts and in prices. So it's pretty interesting how well the players basically adapt to these changes. They find the new best way of making Isk, which includes a lot more factors than just your Isk per hour, but also your safety, being able to bring stuff to the market, all of that good stuff, plays a big role. And yeah, when it comes to that, apparently blue loot is the new hype at the moment. Let's take a look at service fee breakdowns. We could take a quick look at that. I don't expect a lot of changes happening here. So here the industry job taxes for players is the red one. Yeah, player to player, 102 billion, twice that of player to NPC. So we know nullsec active, that's almost always going to be player to player. And then this big chunk here is probably production in and around JITA in NPC stations. That is of course still very, very high as well. Super close to JITA, easy to sell. For some people probably worth the extra taxations there as well. But other than that, yeah, reprocessing is mostly in players, and then repair bills still mostly in player to NPC. Because it's basically set to 0 everywhere, so that never happens there. Planetary import taxes, 28% still going to NPCs, so there's still opportunities for you to find NPC-owned POCOs, put up your own and potentially grab taxes, 24 and 28%. So about a quarter of that is still flowing in there. Office rental, mostly in NPC stations, make a lot of sense. And jump clones also. Okay, well, I think everyone has like at least a reserve clone in an NPC station. Brokers fees, 68% NPC, 32% non-NPC. A lot of trading still happening in JITA, although the player-owned trade hubs do have a very sizable market share as well. Let's see here, top 10 Isk sinks and faucets over time. And okay, we could take a look at that one. I'll try and see what happens. ESS update, and that's the bounty prices. And then here, yeah, we do have this commodity market, so the blue loot that has basically overtaken the creation of Isk through bounty prices. That's exactly what we were talking about before. Clearly shown here with even a very big jump, a little bit of, you could say, a panic reaction to what happened. And now we do have an increase in bounty prices here. CCP is rebalancing this as is needed. They don't want, no one ratting and everyone just evacuating to wormhole space to create Isk. Instead, what they are of course doing is trying to find the balance that they are happy with, not necessarily the one that players are happy with. What's the other one? Because it also says top 8 sinks and faucets over time. What does that show? Basically kind of the same thing, or is that direct? Because we don't see the commodity, so this is probably like direct creation of Isk, incursion payouts and bounty prices close to each other. But yeah, again, we gotta remember that there are these banks as well. In all likeliness, insurance, payouts, and then here transaction taxes, definitely still the number one Isk faucet, so the destruction of Isk. And here you can see here in August last year that CCP increased the taxes quite substantially, which meant a huge increase in that faucet that is basically still doing quite okay, I would say. And after that, we get the money supply. So that was up a little bit. We saw that before, but this one could still be interesting as well. Here is the velocity of Isk that is starting to increase. And I think that's that third part of the story. The first part was that rush on industry. That very clearly is happening, right? A lot of production increases almost everywhere. Everyone that has the means is trying to make capitals, super capitals, battleships, all those things that are expected to become more expensive. That's a huge rush. The second bit is the mining, right? The mining is going up, but not enough, and so mineral prices are still shooting up as well. And then the third one is speculation. I do think a lot of players are, speculating on what's going to happen after the industry changes hit, that means that Isk is, trading hands more often, and as a result, we also clearly see that the velocity of Isk has been increasing and at an increasing momentum, I would say, as well at the tail end here in the month of March as well. Next month could be very, very interesting, I think, especially when the industry changes hit as well, how all of that is going to impact the general market. And then for the final chart, here are the indices that kind of exemplifies the second point, because we have yet another jump in the mineral price index that is basically at an all-time high at this point. Yeah, minerals are super valuable, super expensive, and we've seen that almost all of them have those two stories where, for instance, in high sec, titanium kind of normal, Mexalon crazy good premium, that is your focus. Then in low sec we have isogen that kind of normal, probably still suffering from some big ass stocks that are out there. And then we got Noxium, very, very valuable. I think it went up to like 2,500 Isk for a single piece of Noxium at one point. Crazy prices. And then even Nulsec has that same story as well, with Megasite still being 600, 700 Isk, so not that super valuable historically compared to its historical value. But then Zydrine is doing really well, also going for 2,000 and up in average prices. So all of them have, I would say, some type of mineral that you want to hunt for, that you want to prioritize at the moment. And then maybe something that I read in the Reddit thread about this economic report, a little bit of information on that CPI. So what we clearly notice here is that the mineral price index goes up like crazy. Primary production, secondary production, they're still in a similar ballpark, down a little bit, but nothing too crazy. And then that CPI is just not moving, and that is because it is basically massively dominated by Plex, skins, by that type of item that doesn't really have any response to what's happening with the mineral price index. So that is still a lot of Isk that's actually trading hands, a lot of value that is needed, or that is being consumed, right? Consumer price index finds itself through stuff like Plex, like skins and things like that. And so that one is staying constant, while it's not necessarily, to say that, all right, if you want to have a ship and weapons and munitions, look at the consumer price index. It's basically flat, so affordability is not a problem. It's the same as it was in 2014, 2016, 2018, pretty much. That's not the case. So this is actually almost just like the government, right? That do also have sort of the luxury to cherry pick their data a little bit, so that their inflation numbers are lower than what a lot of people would experience. It can't, of course, be tailored to everyone individually, but here CCP is kind of doing the reverse. It's adding in this huge chunk of market of consumption, which is the Plex market, that doesn't really have anything to do with playing the game, and that's keeping these prices stable despite this mineral price index doing this crazy moonshot that is still going up now on that massive rush that everyone is experiencing, trying to get as much done as possible before the industry changes actually hit. And that makes for a very interesting situation and story. I love to look at the market at the moment, try to find good opportunities to buy cheap and then perhaps to sell high as well. And at the moment, I'm seeing a lot of volatility, a potential some bubble formation as well. I mean, if everyone is building as many battleships as they can, that's probably going to cause a little bit of a problem with perhaps oversupply after the industry changes actually hit, and people want to start converting all of that effort into Isk. But we will have to wait and see for all of that, of course. And that is what I wanted to share with you guys for this one. Lots of changes happening that are having a big impact on that whole market sandbox that EVE Online is, and it is absolutely fascinating to follow along. So yeah, let's see what happens next month when or what the reports will say next month when CCP actually has to show the numbers of what happens with the patch that changes industry in EVE Online. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and as always, I'll see you next time. Don't have the outro link here anymore. Damn it.